You're listening to Mentoring Developers.
People figure out how to incorporate that.
So if I'm somebody who's working in another profession and I'm always intrigued by software development and I'm thinking of switching over, I have a few choices. I can start learning on my own books or blogs and then try to contribute to open source, get my name out there, get some kind of resume built, maybe do sample projects. Or I could go to one of the code schools and get some kind of training that's more rigorous and get some mentorship, and then hopefully get a chance to get recommended for jobs. Either way, I think that there is a chance that I might be able to, as somebody coming into the field, I have a chance. But what are my struggles, or what are the specific tips that you can give me as somebody jumping to computer science from another field that'll help me? Is there any pointers, tips you can give us?
Well, the biggest thing that helped me with my, I'm going to give you the easy answer first. The biggest thing that helped me with my Google searching is that I realized that you can restrict your searches that was only posted in the last year, which revolutionized my life.
Yes.
Because then suddenly I didn't see things that were 2 years old, because 2 years is an eternity in computer time. And so an answer that was posted 2 years ago is really unlikely to be true. So learning how to do search results so that it only showed me stuff in the last year was like a huge thing for me.
and I almost always do that. And
really
now
for non-tech stuff.
Yeah, because, information is old. If you get a news article from 2 years ago, it's useless.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the same is pretty much always true, with certain limited exceptions in programming. The other tip that I'd say is don't sell yourself short. You've got a lot to offer a team, and there's going to be a lot of people who are like, who don't value that, right? And it's I've seen a lot of folks internalize that feeling of I'm not useful, I'm not senior enough to make a difference in a team, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to slow them down. And I know it's really easy to get into that mindset, and it's really hard to avoid it because you talk to people who are brought up in this computer science or sort of traditional open source background, and of course their natural inclination is, well, people should do it the way I did it, and people that aren't doing it that way must not be as good. And this is sort of they may not think that consciously, but that's sort of an implicit bias that we all carry. And, but I think that junior developers or less experienced developers often have a lot to offer from their previous lives, whatever that was. I've talked to people that used to be securities traders, that used to be psychologists, that used to be daycare people, and like all of those folks had really interesting and useful things to add. For example, there was a woman I talked to who worked as a preschool teacher, and so she knew how to take a group of people that were emotionally fraught. Say for example, you're debating editors or spaces versus tabs or something. And she knew how to take a group of people and get them to calm down. And that is a huge skill. If you don't have someone like that on your team, it can be really, really difficult. And, it doesn't have to be a preschool teacher, clearly. But, there are all these skills that people have that go beyond the amount of code that they can contribute. And I think more and more companies are starting to see that.
Yeah, I think this is a really good point. In addition to the team dynamics, I think there's benefit coming from a different background. I mean, we talk about diversity, so there's racial diversity, there's ethnic diversity, there's diversity in terms of religious beliefs and lifestyle, but also in terms of profession. If people come from different professions, they bring their perspective. That I think that's a really good benefit in team dynamics. But I also think that for a startup, it is critical to have people from different backgrounds. So you're not in this monoculture, you're thinking this tunnel vision. If you're building a product for a segment of the population, if your team does not represent that population, then maybe you really don't know where they're coming from. So it's good, right? If I'm going to make a healthcare app, but nobody in my company has ever worked in healthcare, it's going to be a lot tougher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you had like a nurse, for example, that decided to learn programming and not very good at programming yet, but has some interest, but has a lot of good experience in this other field that will help the company, then it's great. I think that people should bring them on. And the problem that I see, and I don't know, you could tell me if my impression is correct, is that we tend to try to get these quote unquote rock star developers for every position, especially in the Silicon Valley, but also the rest of the country. It's this rock star developer wanted mentality. And I think that it's hilarious in my opinion, but I see that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Like, do you really want someone who's going to show up and smash all your computers and then sleep until noon, right? Like, are you sure that's what you want?
Rock stars are not great people to be with. It's
right.
They have
they're very
behavioral issues. They frequently check into rehab.
They do, and I think in order to be in the public eye like that, you kind of have to have you have to be focused on yourself. You have to have a lot of internalized narcissism around. I am worthy. I am someone that other people should listen to. And while I think that a certain amount of that is good, I think that optimizing for that is probably not what you want in a team. Because if you get a whole bunch of rock stars together, it might be amazing, or it might be a train wreck. And more often I see it a train wreck than amazing. And I think that people ask for, the other thing I see a lot of, and I don't know if this is something you've seen in your work, but I see a lot of companies who only want to hire mid-level and senior developers, or sometimes only senior developers. And I think that like the companies I see that are succeeding are the ones that are able to figure out how to hire less experienced developers, how to hire junior developers, and work with them usefully. It's not as easy as, for each mid-level developer you would have hired, you hire 3 junior developers. It doesn't quite work that way. It's a different way of approaching teamwork when you have folks that are coming from such a different place. And there's a trade-off there to make between sort of efficiencies of communication and creativity. So if you've got a team where everyone is roughly the same level, then there's a lot of stuff you don't have to talk about. There's a lot of implicit things that you know, things that you're familiar with, ideas and concepts that you know about and have experience with, and things about the code itself often as well, if you've worked on the code base together for a while. And I think that it can be, so when you bring on the first junior developer, you have to change a lot of how you work. A lot of things that were able to be implicit before now have to be said out loud, and you don't necessarily know what those are because it's been implicit, right? It's almost a blind spot. And so you need to bring on junior developers in order to know what those things are. Discovering them can be painful. Because you need to create an environment in which the junior person will ask questions and doesn't feel like asking questions is a admission of failure or is losing status in some way. Because the only way you're going to figure out what it is that's implicit.
Thank you so much for listening.
For show notes and transcripts, visit us at mentoringdevelopers.com.
You're listening to Mentoring